Well, good morning. Welcome, Hope Digital Congregation. I'm Pastor Sophie Woods. I use she, her pronouns. I'm so thankful that you've joined us here this morning for worship. As we gather for worship today, we'll prepare to hear Jenny start a new series called Rooted about our faith and our faith practices and how we expand, there we go, our faith in how we practice it. This week, we're going to talk about community and worship, and you'll get to see some of those active members and hear their stories. And I encourage you to listen to your own story, listen to their story, and think about your own faith journey. Think about how you've gotten from where you were to where you are now. If it's been a week that you've decided, this is the first week you've decided you want to learn more about faith, that's great. If this is year 55 of 55, whatever it may be, you are welcomed here in this place. I want to remind you that for Hope Digital, if you would like to continue to support the ministries, you are able to go to behopechurch.org/give and select the Hope Digital drop-down when it comes to the funds, and that will help continue this ministry. I'm so excited for our worship service today, the energy that is here, the music that we will hear, the faces and the people we will hear as well. I encourage you to prepare for worship, and I'll see you at the end of service.
Good morning. Welcome to Hope Church this morning. My name is Isaac. I use he, him pronouns. So glad to see you this morning. If you are comfortable, I want to invite you to stand up as we begin worship here, and we're going to sing together. And if you want to join us, we'd love to have you do that as well. There we go. right, here we go. And all I need is a good, good friend. And all I need is a good, good friend. Though this life is so strange, you need a sense of humor. The maker is half caretaker and half joker. And we are not broken ones, just shattered pieces of the same bright sun, trying to figure out which way to run, and we can't do this alone. All I need is a good, good friend to get me through this. And all I need is a good, good friend to help me out when I'm burning down, when I'm all stressed out, when I'm underground. Life is a playground, but it takes a lot of work. So you better learn to love or it will tear you apart. 'Cause in the end we are measured by the size of a heart. So we can't do this alone. Some of us are laughing and some of us are choking. Some of us can't change till every bone's been broken. All the while the maker just sits there joking. We never really were alone. All I need is a good, good friend. And all I need is a good, good friend to get me through this. And all I need is a good, good friend to help me out when I'm burning down, when I'm all stressed out. Thank you for being around.
You may be seated. Good morning, Hope Church. I am Jenny Edwards Bertrand. I'm the lead pastor here, and I am delighted to see you this morning. Our staff is newly back from a leadership retreat, conference. I think we're all maybe a little exhausted, but it's the good kind, because it was a really great week. And we talked about, I probably heard 5 or 6 different speakers talk about the importance of both hospitality and then also extending hospitality or invitation to other people. So every morning on Sundays, these people are here starting at 8 a.m. and they don't go home until noon. And the first thing we do is gather as a group, thinking about how we have the role of spiritual leaders this morning and making sure we know the order of what's happening. It's practical as well. But we also think through who we are inviting or who we are praying that we have the courage to invite. So I want to extend that out to all of you. It's one of our practices of hope to be invitational. In fact, if you start a church from scratch, you don't have a church unless you invite people because there's no people. So it's in our DNA to do that. And I'm grateful that you're here, and I push you to kind of think about that, because if you are a first-time guest, we welcome you by making a donation in your honor to a local or national or international charity. So at the offering time, I'll tell you more about where we are with that. For everyone, and those of you online as well, part of our Hope Digital space, thank you for being here. It is helpful if you check in. We know that you're here. Especially those of you in the digital space, the only way we know that you're here is to check in. And of course, you can just put in the chat that you're here, and that's helpful. For those of you in the room, we appreciate you letting us know that you're here as well. The app is a good place to find out what's going on. Calendar items, there's something new in the app I'm going to share at the end of the sermon, and you can even get worship notes for the day. So it is a good thing to have, a good place to get more information about Hope Church. It kind of replaces, did any of you ever go to a church that had a bulletin? And it was like you had to, and then like papers would fly everywhere, and then everyone would be like, promote my thing, and like all of a sudden you had like a full newspaper at church. I think a lot of churches still have that because regularly a photocopier salesperson stops by, like, I can serve all your photocopier needs. We have a printer that we bought in 2015 that's still serving us. That's our printing needs here. We're a low paper use kind of situation. That means I don't need all those volunteers. So did any of you ever do that where you had to, or you knew like your grandma or your great grandma did it, where they went in and folded and stuffed all those bulletins? Yeah, we don't have to do that here either. Saving trees, saving time, good stuff. But all of that's replaced with the app or on the website, so I appreciate you getting your info there. We're starting this Sunday a series called Rooted in Hope. This is what we call our new member class, and I've turned it into a sermon series. So any of you who are hoping to join Hope as a member and you haven't had a chance to do that yet, this being a part of worship for the next 4 weeks means that you've been in the new member class. And on the final Sunday in October, we're going to welcome anyone who would like to join as a member. That includes all of you and Hope Digital. Now, there is absolutely zero pressure to become a member of a church. You can be part of what we're doing forever and ever and ever, amen. In fact, if you choose to partner with the congregation, it comes with some expectations of what it means to be part of the faith community. So that's what we're going to talk about. And also a little bit about our story. Today I'm going to push you to think about your own story, and we're going to have fun together. And part of our story includes this, our prayer statement. So let us pray that together. Dear God, as Hope Church, we pray that this is a place where absolutely everyone experiences God's love. We are a place of theological thought and conversation, and we are a community learning to live Christ-centered lives. Amen. Part of what we pray that worship does, it gives us a break from the news in our lives and all of what we need to think about. The other 167 hours of the week, you get an hour to focus and direct your attention toward God or toward each other. And one of the ways we do that is by experiencing music together. So if you would like, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and experience this part of worship together.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark, fleshed out the wonder of life. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. And I can see your heart heart and everything you made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I. I can see your heart and everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. So will I. So will I. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls shy, it will sing again 100 billion times. God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. Even gladly chose surrender, so will I. I can see your heart in billion different ways. Every precious one, the child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
Bind us together within your love. Bind us together within your holy love. As we shared through our sorrows, we will share in your joy. Bind us together in love. Bind us together and be our peace. Bind us together and be our perfect peace. Though the tempest may rage, we will rest in your joy. Bind us together in peace. Bind us together and give us hope. Bind us together and give us endless hope. Though our tears were our bread, we will feast in your joy. Bind us together in hope. Bind us together and make us one. Bind us together and make us truly one. In your love, in your peace, in your hope, in your joy. Bind us together as one. In your love, in your peace, in your hope, in your joy. Bind us together as one.
You may be seated. In this past week, I want to let you know that in addition to your staff team and leadership council chair spending time in learning and bonding and worshiping, we also were able to send $135 to Home Sweet Home Ministries for the 9 first-time guests who signed in over the past month. So thank you very much for that. And I want you to know that things like this happen. Things like being generous in the community while inviting people into the church happen because of your generosity and the way that you make these ministries happen. So thank you for your generosity. As the ushers can come forward at this time, and as they pass these baskets, I want you to remember in your mind that most of our offering comes in through the week, through texting or ACH or the app. As you see these baskets, offer a prayer of thanksgiving to God for all of the generosity of this church. Thank you. All right. Are you ready for this? It's our new member class, and you're all in it. And really, it's just so that you can be more rooted in who we are as a faith community. I want you guys to know all about it. Some of you already know all about it, and for many of us in the room, this information might be new. So the first thing I want you to know is that our story goes back not to our launch in 2014, but it really goes back all the way to 2006. I was in a large growing church. I was in a church that had gone from 200 in worship to over 800 in worship, and that's hard work. And also, like, people connected to the church were a couple thousand. When it was time for me to transition into a new position, I heard about this campus ministry position at Illinois State. My boss at the time, called a district superintendent, said, well, let's pray about it. I don't think that this is your next step, but let's just pray and see what God has to say about this. So he and I both prayed for a couple of weeks, and he came back to me and he said, I think you're supposed to do that. I think that that is what's next, because we really need to be making a difference through our campuses. Also, P.S., if you don't get it turned around, probably not only are you going to get moved, but the campus ministry might get closed down. No pressure at all. So, remember, I had been in what was at that time a brand new building, thousands of people, and a really, lots of volunteers. That's what I was used to. I came into the campus ministry. There was, I kid you not, $44 in the checkbook. So I learned how to be a fundraiser on day one. I called one of the people I knew, and she said, what's your vision for this ministry? And I went, and said whatever I said, and she got out her checkbook and wrote me a check for $1,000. So I had $1,044 to save a ministry now. And then also, it was summer, so I had to kind of figure out, I needed to get, who are my students so I can train them, and we can do that thing that I'd done across town. And I found out there were 8 students, so I have $44 and 8 students. And furthermore, all of these students were beloved children of God. I love them to this day. Only a couple of these students had the social skills to be able to welcome other students. One might say weird. I don't. I wouldn't say that. But, I had a couple of students with the social skills to actually grow a ministry. I had literally a couple of bucks, and I had to figure this out. So what I did, I took a look, this is way back in 2006, at all of the other campus ministries. And what I discovered was that, and it's funny because I heard a few people this week who started churches around this same time say this very thing. I looked around in 2006 and I noticed you could either go to a campus ministry that was thriving with excellent music and great programs and a lot dynamic, and was really pretty judgmental and kind of limited or traditional theology. Or you could go to a very small, mainline, more expansive or inclusive theology campus ministry that had very, very traditional worship. And by traditional worship, I mean this. The campus ministry I came into at the time was worshiping inside a sanctuary that had enough people for 500, but they had 8 to 15 students in a sanctuary that could seat 500. And that bulletin I talked about earlier was just jammed. It was like a full ELCA, which is the good Lutherans. No, they're all so the Lutherans. But there's a full liturgy that was all our beloved children of God. Why are you guys arguing about this? So I was like, oh no, we're not doing a full 1 hour liturgy. And so I knew that we needed excellent worship and excellent worship music. And I can't sing or play anything whatsoever. And so I started praying. And I'll be honest, what I have prayed about the most over those, 20 years about, is that God would provide excellent musicians, and God has always come through on that. I should be praying more specifically for other things like that. I do pray. But but that is one, since I absolutely cannot fulfill that in any way, shape, or form, I've always prayed for that. And I had one of those people in that 8 that was okay at music, but then I just started asking all of my colleagues, like, who do you know that might be in the Bloomington Normal area that is 18 to 22 who plays an instrument? And I started cold calling 18 to 22-year-olds and got a lot of no's, but eventually got the right yes. And ended up with a little team of people who were willing to provide the band. And actually, that team of people eventually recruited Anish. So that's how long ago I met Anish, who's a leader in our church now. And they were good. And I was like, we're just going to pretend this is a packed house. And so the music was excellent from the beginning, even if there were like as many people on the stage as there were in the congregation. But eventually that little campus ministry, even though every single semester, part of your congregation leaves, offensive, it's called graduation, but still, I took it personally, and we grew from about 8 to around 150 or 200 students. That picture is from 2010. The person I'm sitting next to on my right, Scotty, was one of the worship leaders at that time and was the first worship leader for launching Hope Church. He is a beautiful gay man who, so from the very beginning, it was like, we're LGBTQ inclusive. Scott came from a tradition that did not allow anyone who is LGBTQ to lead, and he was a spiritual leader in that place. So, college starts around August. By about October, Scott sat down with me and said, hey, I think you need to fire me. Excuse me? You're phenomenal at what I hired you for. And he said, well, yeah, but when I was in high school, I dated a guy. And I said, naively, oh, so you're gay? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, so you're a guy who dates guys, but you're not gay? And he's like, yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, fine, I got you. And obviously it's this internalized homophobia because of what the church says about who you have to be in the church. So by the time we got to Hope Church, and I'll share how we got there, but when my district superintendent and the congregational development person invited me to do this, I said, you need to know that from day 0, this is going to be an inclusive church. And if you don't want me to create an inclusive church in this conference, you need to stop this now. And the bishop at the time, Bishop Palmer, we only got to have him for 4 years. He was incredible. He said, well, Jenny, I would expect nothing less from you. Okay. Moving on then. So this was in 2012 that the campus ministry was asked to launch a church. Now, before I feel too puffed up, like, look at me, I've grown another ministry. Of course I was asked to launch a church. We were Plan G. Plan A, B, and C were to invite the 3 largest churches in town United Methodist churches in town to start a second site. Plan D, E, and F were to go back to those 3 largest churches in town and push them again to start a second site. No. Plan G. Me. I kind of tried to say no, and then I thought, well, I have to go to my board and ask them, because my time was going to be split. I had to be 50%. I was doing 100% in one ministry. They're like, you're fine. How about you do that same thing, but for 2 ministries, go. And for some reason I said yes, and the board said yes, and so a college ministry launched this church. Now at the time I had this naive opinion, okay, well all these people that have been so mean to graduate and take jobs in other parts of the state or country, more of them are surely going to stay if there's a church that we're going to get to launch. And in my naive head I thought, I'll have 50 like 22 to 25-year-olds to start a church. That will be so cool. And then they got jobs other places and moved. Rude. So we had about 12 of us. That included Ryan, my spouse, and I, and it included our infant son, because of course, after I said yes to this is when an adoption happened. So I've been waiting for a baby for a decade at this point for the various ways, and boom, baby, start a church. Oh, and you need to finish your dissertation too. Okay, no problem. And also still run a campus ministry. Woo! I was younger then. So we did this thing, and that 12 counted Ryan and I and Van, and it counted Anish. I didn't yet count Anish's spouse, Trisha, who is here running slides because she was an active part of another congregation, but she showed up to everything that we did. So I kept not counting her until she was like, okay, well, count me too. So yay, Trisha. I'm glad that you're here. Basically, we started then in 2013. We started having preview services at what is now Pizza Paya. It was at the time Firehouse. One morning that we were supposed to have a preview service there, they had forgotten to unlock for us, but we saw someone in the cleaning crew leaving, and we were like, oh no, we're supposed to be here. And we just went in and had worship, though there was no one that represented the actual establishment there to welcome us. We're like, yeah, we're supposed to be here. What else are you gonna do? We'd advertised it. So, and because there are 12 of us, inviting, always inviting. Our focus at that time was people in their mid to late 20s. That was our focus. People are still in transition at that time. So we kept building the church and people moving, And I really love this iteration of Hope Church. It's more intergenerational because y'all aren't always moving. I will support you if you guys graduate and need to move. If you graduate, I'm talking to straight A students here, yeah. But I guess I'll celebrate that as well. So we had also lots of location transition. Always like, we have this great place to be, and then something would happen, because it was always rented. We were going in, setting up, tearing down every Sunday morning, did that for years. And then in 2018, we had the opportunity to rent our first 24/7 space. And that was game-changing. Our first worship service in the bank building was Easter morning 2018. And that's when we really started to hit our stride. Like, we had a place to be. We didn't have to start from scratch with all of the technology every Sunday morning, all of the chairs, all of that. We could kind of build upon successes. There was a clear place to invite people. We could put a sign up. And so we really started to get it. And by Advent, which is Christmas season of 2019, we were pretty full. And it's like, yes, we're finally here. And the offering was coming in the way it needed to sustain a church. Yes. And I knew, and at this point I was still 50-50, but on July 1, 2020 was supposed to be when I went full-time for Hope. It's like, this is all happening as it's supposed to. And we started 2020 with a bang. We had an awesome sermon series, lots of people coming in. You know what happened. And we shut down, and we did open our, take down all the chairs and create a remote learning space. I took a picture without kids there because protecting children, but we have these tables all the way around our sanctuary because we had a room where windows could open. So we were able to do that for the entire school year of 2020, 2021, that year. Not the year that everything shut down, but that next year when they decided to be fully remote. And we had a lot of junior high and high school students who would have failed. High school students who would not have graduated from high school because perhaps they had a single parent who was in one of the essential jobs, not working from home, but working out and about. And most of these kids had IEPs. And they would have failed. So Hope Church opened our doors, and we really knew we had done something when December of that year, if your kid was failing one or more classes and you'd gotten that report card, with the report card, both districts included in it a letter that said, if you need support for your child, Hope Church has this remote learning option. And we only found it out because one of the people that was helping to lead this had a child who was failing. And they were like, oh, okay, this is a large help to me. But we were really thrilled to see that. We finally opened in fall of 2021, like most churches did, closed for 18 months. And you know, this happened to every single church. People didn't come rushing back like we were praying, hoping, like we didn't get to pick back up where we were. And by the beginning of 2022, that's when we really understood the impact of the pandemic and where we were at a realistic level, which was more back to the beginning than I wanted us to be. And in fact, and those of you who were around at that time may or may not know this, but we really thought deeply about closing the doors. At the time, there were a number of young adults who said to me, the only reason I'm alive is because of this church. You have to do whatever you can do to make sure it stays open. So I called one of my many bosses at the conference level, and I said, I don't know what to do. I think we need to close. And he was basically like, buck up. You built stuff before. You built this campus ministry. You built this church before. Like, think of it a new church start. Just rebuild it. And so we did. And invite. And by 2023, again, we're trucking along, and you know what happened? We got evicted from our space. Oh, are you kidding? And we had to shut down again. My colleagues who talk about how hard it was to shut down and reopen the churches, I'm like, we got to do it times two. But then we bought this building in August of 2023. We hadn't yet finished our capital campaign, but we signed the paperwork. And Kevin Maffett, who's here at this service, was his name, and Rhonda's name was on there. And we thought, well, the money either comes or we sell the building in a few months. This is such a cool picture. August 31st, they're in this room right here. It was green and yellow with primary colored dots all over it. That whole wall had mirrors that had to come down. And that second picture, we were so excited before this carpeting came in. It was quite a transformation. There was one of those drop ceilings that was just ugly and would have made, so look, we're here, woohoo. And about, Christmas 2023, we opened, and all of 2024 was great. We began to build. About a year ago at this time, we said, hey, if we're really going to keep trucking, we're going to have to look at what our giving is. And you all responded with extreme generosity. And we're like, all right, it's just momentum now. Now we're going. And in April or May, we got a call from our bishop, Bishop Bard, who said, I got a thing I need you to do. And we're doing it right now. We have an appointment we need to make of an ordained elder who will be our first out trans pastor in downstate Illinois. And we want her to come to Hope Church. And we were like, we don't have money for another pastor. Like, all right, we'll give you a grant. And Sophie will raise a bunch of money. And that's where we are. And Hope Digital, you are not just now something on the side that we stream on the side, which you've been streaming since 2018, but we are counting you as our second site. We are thinking of you as your own ministry. Isn't that cool? All right, so that's where we are. I want to tell you one more thing. We had to figure out what this church would be. And let me tell you something fun that we did, and I would still be willing to do this if you have anyone in your life you want to hear this from. I asked everyone that doesn't, or we grown to 2 dozen at this point, who in your life doesn't go to church, will never go to church, hates church, is bored by church, whatever. Will they be willing to sit down with me and tell me why they hate church or why they don't go to church? And then we asked that question, and then we just listened. We weren't defensive. We didn't try to tell them why they were right or wrong. We just listened. And you can imagine the answers. They were answers like, I always feel judged, to no one's ever invited me. Whew. To I was excluded for being LGBTQ+, to church was weird, to church was boring, or I heard this from a lot of people, church is just for families, and by family I mean mom, dad, kids. And that is articulated from the pulpit each and every week. Or we weren't allowed to think, or we were told not to ask questions, or I felt like I had to fully know the Bible, or I already had to be a Christian in order to be at church, and that's just not who I am. So we listened to all of that, prayed about all of that, and then a group of us met at the aforementioned Firehouse Pizza, ordered a couple of big pizzas, pitcher of beer, sat down with our notebooks, and that's how we wrote that prayer statement. We heard from people. We needed absolutely everyone included in church. We learned that people needed to be able to ask good questions and have good conversation. And we learned that we weren't going to say, it's a place where everyone's a Christ follower. Not because that's not important to us, but because people felt intimidated to go to a church where that felt like a prerequisite. So we said we are a community learning to live Christ-centered lives, a community learning. And so that's it. Absolutely everyone. Conversation, thought, you don't have to turn off your brain, and a community learning. Recently, we asked people who are part of our congregation now why they come to Hope Church, and I want you to hear this.
Well, to be honest, I was looking for the community. I tried other 12-step programs and this, that, and the other, and nothing really worked for me. And then I came here, and I felt a sense of community, and I like the can-do attitude about the church. I like the fact that Monday night is the best conversation we can have in town.
The thing is that the thing that kept us from coming into church to start with was I wanted to find a place where I could bring anybody in my family, my husband, my kids, and that they would be accepted for who they were and what they believed or didn't believe without any kind of, that they wouldn't have to turn any part of themselves off or hide any part of themselves to come in. And so the very first day we walked in, I'm sure I was a lot more nervous than John was, because I'm always like, unstructured social interaction. And we walked in and you had someone sitting, I think it was Anna maybe, and I walked up and she said, hello, what brings you to Hope, or something, or something. And I said, I'm a believer, and so I'm here, but my husband is on a faith journey and he's not. And she said, that's awesome, I'm an atheist. And John felt so welcomed and so okay being here, being who he was. And I felt so relieved knowing that we were in the right place. And then we read the prayer statement. And the prayer statement, I think, really said everything about it. I knew right then that I was home and that I had found the right place.
I went to numerous churches with family or friends through the years, the holidays, everyone goes at Christmas Eve, right? But it never felt right. Church felt scary. I feel like ever since I've known myself, I believed in God, but when I would go to church, it's very much, you have to be saved, you have to be baptized, and you cannot sin, and maybe you'll get into heaven. And like, that was my idea of church, right? It's a lot, and it's terrifying. So the idea of that was I just had to fit this mold that I didn't feel like I felt, or I was too different, or I wasn't living the lifestyle I should have to go to church regularly. Like, that wasn't me. That was something I couldn't be a part of. And then coming to Hope, I felt very different. It was a very different, first of all, is the environment, right? We're in a dark movie theater, so there's a little less pressure, I feel like. But everyone was so kind.
I know what it feels like to feel like you're hiding in your own home, and you don't have to. You can have an hour a week where you join us, have a conversation, be yourself, and not have to hide. And not be afraid either. That is such a big thing for me. I spent so many years being afraid of what would happen when I came out, not if, when, and how that would affect everything of my life. And just having one place a week, even if it's just 1 hour a week, that's 1 hour more than you had before, to be able to say, I'm safe, I feel connected with other people get me.
Desperation for a supportive church community, and also a lot of smiling faces. I mean, as soon as I parked my car, the greeter was standing by the door. Someone opened the door for me. Someone showed us around. It was nice to see some LGBTQ affirming colors and things around, because it just made me realize that this church is truly fully accepting, and I just felt very welcomed in.
Take a look at that graphic. Let's go to the static one, if we can. All right, video is next. This has never quite been articulated here because I have had a hard time putting it into words, but I want you to look at this, and you're going to see it a lot over the next few weeks and over the next few years. These are the practices of hope. You know, we said we're a community learning to live Christ-centered lives. Well, how in the world do you do that? Now, most of the models I had for articulating this included first you start here, then you go here, then you go here, but it's up, and you get closer and closer to God until you're perfect. And I don't know anyone whose life looks like that, because things happen. You get diagnoses that need to be focused on, or you lose a job, or you get great news, or you're on vacation, or your coffee spilled all over you in the morning, but then you got a second cup of great coffee. It's like all over the place, really. Spirituality, as Mike Yaconelli, a youth ministry person from way back in the day, used to say that spirituality is messy. And so we're showing the interconnectedness through these roots of our practices of hope. And today we focused on the practices of worship and community. Now, just looking at that for a second, I want you to look in the very middle. In the very middle, that circle where all of this interconnects, is your soul. And I believe that your soul, that is the being in human being, your soul, the essence of who you are, that your soul knows what it needs. And so I want you to begin to focus in on your own soul And what do you need? And today, all of you who are here, all of you that are online, have decided that worship and community are part of what your soul needs. Or maybe it was just habit, or the alarm went off, or whatever it is, you're getting to be part of this. But that soul, that peace in the middle, helps guide you and direct you in what you need. Over the next 3 weeks, we're going to talk about all of those practices that are around this. And I want to say something about the soul. First of all, Parker Palmer, who is a theologian from Minnesota, he's created the Center for Contemplation and Action. He talks about the soul in this way. He said that the soul is like a beautiful animal in the wild. It was interesting to read that this week, the same week that Jane Goodall died. You know, she went into the wild to study chimpanzees. And he says, here's what I mean by this. An animal in the wild instinctively knows what it needs to survive. All right, but if you're trying to get in touch with your soul, and it's like this beautiful wild animal, you can't just charge into it. Like if you see even a deer in the woods and you want to get a picture of it and you run toward it, what's going to happen? It's going to run away, right? Or if you're in one of our beautiful national parks and you see an animal, what do you need to do? You need to get very still, very quiet, very peaceful. And even then, maybe you've been at a hike in the woods. You know that even when you do that, it might just be a glimpse or an appearance that you see out of the corner of your eye. That's kind of what it requires to understand and get in touch with our own souls. And that is the challenge of being rooted in hope. How can each person, now that the trappings of judgmentalism, or whether you're going to be loved or included, or whether we actually mean absolutely everyone, or whether you're going to have to check your brain at the door, all that's taken care of. Boop, don't have to worry about that stuff. Now, what's it going to take to get in touch with your soul and understand what it needs at this time? I want you to hear the 23rd Psalm. I'm just going to have a picture during this time. And instead of saying shepherd, because shepherd doesn't make sense in the 21st century. I mean, I can do all of the mental gymnastics to understand what it meant in the first century and how you take it. I don't want you to have to do mental gymnastics. So this morning, instead of saying the Lord is my shepherd, I'm going to say soulmate. And what I mean by that is that person, that being, that entity that is the source of all love and understands fully who you are. The Lord is my soulmate, I shall not want. They make me to lie down in green pastures. They lead me beside still waters. They restore my soul. They lead me in right paths for their name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for they are with me. Their rod and their staff, they comfort me. They prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. They anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. They restore my soul. God restores our soul. What does it take to get to that level of peace such that you can be in touch with your own soul? One of the things that you can do is worship. And when you're in worship, because people can worship anywhere, alone in nature is one beautiful way to worship. But when you choose to worship in community, you are choosing to do so with each other. And so community becomes part of it. And sometimes when you come here, you may be coming here because you need worship. Sometimes when you come here, you are the community that the person near you needs. For those of you in Hope Digital, you are creating a community even if you're talking about something in the chat that's entirely different. That's the secret. If you want to be able to talk during worship, do it online because you can talk about whatever you want with everyone there, right? So It is community and worship are our first two things. God restores your soul. This is discovering what your soul needs. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, I have no idea what my soul needs, I want to introduce a practice called a spiritual autobiography because it helps you discover what your soul needs. And if you're like, that sounds like writing, you can write, you can draw, you can make lists, whatever. Instead of describing what that is this morning, I'm going to give you the opportunity to sign up for daily devotions. And a very easy way to do that is in your app. And if you click your app, you'll see where it says in the second row, Rooted Devotions. You can sign up in your app easily, or you can sign up through this QR code. We will put that QR code up at the end of worship as well. But if you sign up there, this entire week, we're going to walk through what it is to develop a spiritual autobiography. And in doing so, I guarantee you, you will get more deeply in touch with who you are. For those of you that are on Hope Digital, we are going to say goodbye to you and let you connect with Sophie more intentionally. Theological thought and conversation, give her hard questions. Type those in so she has to respond in the live chat. Come on, Hope Digital. And for those of us in the room, we are going to do the ultimate act of worship and community, and that is sharing a meal together. And so...
Well, welcome back to Hope Digital. I'm so excited about what Jenny just was talking about and called us out by name, reminding us that we get to talk about different things. And we actually are. In the chat, we're talking about different things. Oh no, our audio sounds bad. If my audio is really bad, we will just cancel for the week. Hello, is this better? Hello, a little better? A little better? A lot better? I don't know. I'm getting a bunch of hand signals that I don't know. That's the thing. This is still a growing project in need. What? Staticky. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll work on it for next week. Hey, I swear there was a gremlin running around last week. I think there still is one running around. But as we're talking about worship and community and knowing what our soul needs, Patrick sounds like he's got an idea and is really thinking about it and wants to talk about it. Small groups that meet outside once or twice a week, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Being in nature. Let's wait until October actually gets here. Several of us here have been wearing orange today, trying to force October to be here. And now I see myself, yay. So we will work on the static for later. Hey, if this is the problem, that's a good thing. We have people who want to hear us, want to know what's going on. I'm going to record something this week, and we'll have a little bit more of a conversation later in the week. But I wish you all well, and I send you with this blessing. Go forth to be yourselves, to know what your soul needs, and I encourage you to listen to your own faith journey. Remind yourself where you've been and where you're going, and we will continue together. Amen.